Hi crafters, welcome back to another segment of KISS, Keep It Simple Sylvia. Today is the first Friday in July, actually July 4th, and we're going to begin a whole new topic. And for the month of July, it's just going to be kind of odds and ends. There's so many different things that are just so much fun to share, and I thought, okay, why just limit it to one topic? Today we're going to do a placemat. We're actually going to just make placemats out of paper, newspapers, flyer paper, whatever kind of paper we can get our hand on. And we always, as a kid, started making these around July 4th. July 4th was always a special time for me as a kid growing up because it always signaled the beginning of picnic season. Being a child in Detroit, we got out of school around mid-June. And so July 4th was always the first big holiday that kicked off the summer season. And we always started it off with big picnics. And as a young kid growing up, my family used to love to just take Sunday drives. And I can remember my mom and dad loading us up in the station wagon, just driving out to the country and just pulling off the side of the road and just having a picnic. And for these picnics, we used to make these little placemats. It was a project that we always started to make it so we felt as kids that we were contributing to doing these picnics. And so what we did with my mom and dad being children of the Depression, they were very frugal in everything that they did in their everyday life. And one of the things that we always did was we always collected newspaper because back at that time we had these things that were called newspaper drives. And we always had big stacks of newspapers that my dad would bind together with twine. And there was certain requirements, I guess, I don't know, but he always stacked them the same way, the same height, the same amount, and then he bound them up with twines. I just remember that. And so we always had newspaper to play around with and make all sorts of things out of. And like I talked about in my last segment in June, my first love of folding, paper folding, came from my dad making little sailor hats and sailor boats and all sorts of things out of newspaper. And so one of the things that we used to do to help kick off the picnic season that we called it was make little placemats so we could always feel like we were a part of the adventure. So what we did was we always got newspaper, and today it, newspapers are kind of hard to come by with all of the news online, and I don't even get a newspaper, so I have to rely on all these little daily little newspapers from around the valley here, or the stuff that comes in the mail, all of the flyers and everything. But as it turns out, these are pretty good size to work with. So I just let the size of the page determine the size of the mat that I'm going to make. And I just fold it. Now, the more that you fold it, the thicker your little weavings are going to be. And so I just have this little newspaper. I opened it up and I'm just going to fold it in half because this is what we used to do with the newspaper pages. Just fold it in half, fold it in half again, and then we just folded it in half again. But what I like to do, so I don't have any edges showing, is I like to fold it up on itself and then fold it down, and then I let this back part, I let this be the back of my mat. So on my mat I have a nice finished look to it. I have no seams and I have no loose edges. But you don't have to do that. You can just do the simple fold. But this is just how I like to do it. So I'm just going to make a series of these and just keep folding them that way, just by using this paper and letting its size be the guide. And one of the cool things that we used to do with this is when for barbecues, when we'd have our picnics and have our barbecues, used to make great big huge ones because obviously newspaper can be pretty big. And that would be where my dad would dump all of the stuff that he put on the barbecue, the ribs, the corn on the cob, the chicken, whatever, and just put it on the picnic table and just in the center there, no serving plates, no nothing, just dump it onto this folded placemat that us kids had made, and we just would all dig in. Nowadays you kind of see it like in the East when they have um, lobster bakes and crab bakes and clam bakes and stuff like that. They just use newspaper and they spread it on the table, and then they just dump all the contents of the lobster bake on it and everybody just digs in. Well, we did kind of the same thing, except ours was, with barbecued food. Or if we went on a picnic, then we had our own little placemats that we could sit down and eat off of. Now, with newspapers, don't forget that when they get wet, the ink can come off, but that was kind of like the whole fun of the adventure, was dealing with the ink. And then if you want to, because I just think these things are so cute, you can actually seal this. Once you get it all done, you could use Mod Podge, or you could use some kind of varnish sealer or something. I know in origami they make similar things to this, and they actually seal them so that they can be permanent. But it's up to you. The fun thing about just making them out of newspapers and using these as our placemats and stuff is when we were all done, we just gathered it all up and threw it away, and we had nothing we had to worry about bringing home. And because it was a picnic, we were allowed at that time to eat with our hands, and so it was just a fun time. Just packing up the station wagon and going out in the country and sitting playing all day out in the country, and then coming home at night. Dad would let my sister and I lay down in the back of the wagon, and he'd open up that back window, and she and I would just look out at the stars and try and pick out all the different constellations and stuff. It was just so much fun. And one of the things that I just absolutely love to this day is the smell of skunk. Now, I know people think that that's really weird, but to me that just brings back such great childhood memories of being out in the country late at night, because inevitably we always smelled skunk. You always would smell skunk when we were coming home from our picnics, our Sunday drives, our picnics. And it was just so much fun. We always laughed and got a big laugh about it. So that just conjures up all those little neat childhood memories for me. And I just love it. Even to this day, when I smell skunk, it's just like, wow. I know that sounds kind of weird, but that's just the way it was. So I'm going to keep folding all these up. And I let the size of the paper dictate how, like I said, how long I want it to be. And then also you can let it uh, dictate how wide it's going to be too. You can just fold a whole bunch of these up, and you can get a great big huge mat out of it. And I'll show you one that I made earlier. This was out of flyers, and this is huge. I could actually fold it in half and get two placemats out of it. But this would be something that we would make, and we would put it in the center of the picnic table or on the blanket, and Dad would just dump all the food on here and we would just all dig in. Isn't that cute? Gosh, I just love the way that looks. But this was made out of those flyers, and I just let its size dictate. I folded these all up and then just started weaving them, and I'll show you how we weave them together. So I'm gonna pause the camera and finish making all of these, and I'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, so I got all of these folded, and I just folded up as many pages that was in the little newspaper. Now I need to make something that's going to be the edge. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use this because it's as wide as I want the placemat to be. And I'm just going to tear this flyer in half and just fold it up the way I always fold it. But then I'm going to do a different fold at the top. Instead of doing the one that folds like this and then folds back down, I'm just going to just actually fold it onto itself so I have even edges. And the reason that I'm going to do that is I'm going to use that as a means to tuck the raw edges of my long strips into. So I have like a pocket to start with. And what you're going to need is you're going to need a stapler. Now, I do not remember using a stapler at all with this. We probably used tape, or we probably used the glue that my mom would make out of flour and water. but I don't remember actually using a stapler. But this is so much easier with stapler, and I recommend it. And the neat thing about staplers is that you can get colored staples in, to add to the festive look of the project here, or just regular staples, or you can always color your own staples with alcohol inks. So I'm going to start. I'm just going to grab one of my uh, pages that I folded. I'm going to decide what's going to be my top and what's going to be my bottom. I decided that I only want the clean edge here, not the edge that is shown with all the multiple edges. And because of the way I folded it, once again, I want my seam side down. So I'm going to just stick that in here. I'm going to just fold it, and then I'm going to staple it. Get it in there and get it stapled. And as you do these, I recommend that you staple as you go. It just keeps everything aligned nicely. And then put your next one in. And we're going to have a nice concealed edge on this. I think I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see what we're doing here. Okay, I think that's pretty good here. Okay, so now I'm just going to staple this. And I'm just going to keep adding all of my folded pages. And I'm giving myself a nice clean edge here. And just keep doing this. Oops, can't even see it. I don't have you on frame here. Just keep adding all my pages. Usually about 7 strips is about all you really need, but then it depends on how wide the paper was that you were folding, how big you made your folds. But right now we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This one's going to require a little more. There's 7. And then 8. Okay, now you see I've got a real nice edge. No pages hanging out at all. Okay, now I'm going to start with the weaving. I'm just going to take another one of my pieces of paper, and you have to decide which way you want it to go. You want to start under or over. Doesn't matter. Okay, I'm going to tuck it underneath here and into that little pocket that I made on the reverse side. I'm going to tuck that in so once again I have a finished edge. I'm going to staple. And then because I'm over here, I have to go under, and then I go over on this one, and I'm under, and then I have to go over on this one, and then under, and then over. I'm going to cut it off. Okay, so we got over, under, over, under, over, under, over, under. And then just staple it down. And I do recommend that you staple as you go because these can get really out of whack. and they won't stay square. I don't know if this page is long enough. Yep, it's long enough. Okay, so now we're going to go over on the top because we're under here and staple it up. Okay, and then I'm going to bring this one over, make sure it's down right, under, over, and you just keep weaving. And we're going to do this for the whole length of our placemat. And then cut it off on the edge and staple it. So you get the idea, and you probably have to pull it tight because it will get out of whack on you because of the thickness of the pages. But don't pull it too tight because you don't want to rip it. And then I'll staple this, and then I'll cut that edge off. And I'll just keep weaving back and forth, back and forth. So I'm going to pause the video, and I'll be back when it's all done. Okay, crafters, so we've got it all woven now, as you can see. And now we have to finish off this end. And I'm going to make it like I did this end. I'm going to get that same piece of flyer that I had, fold it in half, then fold it in half again, and then in half again. And then I have it folded the same way that I did this, and I'm going to use it to tuck these ends in. But what I have to do is I'm going to have to make sure that these ends are even in order to go inside here. So I'm just going to cut them all off, pick the shortest one, and I'm going to cut to that. Just cut them all because you want them all to be the same size. So when they go in, they'll all fit in the same way. Okay, so then I'm just going to lay this down, tuck them all in. Get them all lined up in there. Okay, and then I'm going to just use my stapler to tack everything down. Making sure that I catch each one of those loose edges. Okay, now on the end that you'll notice that some of your ends are uneven. All you have to do is just cut them. Just even them up. Okay, now you can leave it like it is because it's kind of cute just the way it is, or you could take duct tape all around the edges. Just depends. I mean, if you're just using this just for, you know, like a regular family project type picnic or something, you might want to just leave it the way it is. But if you're having a cookout and you got friends coming over and you've got the kids helping you make these, you might want to make them a little fancier and put duct tape all around the edges. You could even put washi tape, or you could put masking tape. It won't hold as well, but duct tape holds real well. And then there you see, we've got ourselves our little placemat. Isn't this adorable? And it's nice and thick and it's cushiony because of the way that we folded our paper. Now if you wanted to, you don't have to make it as thick. You could cut your papers in half and do half the size, but it's nice and pillowy. It has a nice little pillowy feel to it. And I'm going to zoom back out again so you can see how nice and big this is. It's so big it still doesn't even get in my camera. Definitely the size of a placemat. The nice thing about this is that, you know, you're not bound by any size. You can use the size of the paper the way it was. And we used 8 strips, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 this way. And we used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, because we had that end one. Yeah, 15. And what you can do, you saw how we cut the long strips in half to give us the half sizes here. Or, like I did on this great big huge one, I just kept all these strips the same size and just let it dictate how big this was going to be. You can see this is huge. It's just, and it's so colorful because I used it from flyers. It's so much more colorful than what newspaper is. But the neat thing about newspaper too is that it's kind of cute, but you can always color it. You could paint it if you wanted to. You could ink it if you wanted to. You could put stickers on it. You could let the kids put like 4th of July stickers on it or something. It's just whatever you want it to do. And to me, this just was so much fun because it signaled the start of picnic season in our house and just going out for our Sunday drives and having our picnics in the country like that. I hope you enjoyed this little project today and maybe you might make some of these little placemats for your 4th of July outing. I forgot to show another little one that I made out of flyers, and all it was I just used the size of the flyer to dictate the square. And then you can see how I completed the edges all the way around on this one. And it's just so adorable because it's just all this beautiful color, and because the flyer is that thicker shinier paper, it has a nice sheen to it, and it's so pillowy and cushiony, and the ends are finished off real nicely. And this was just letting the size of the flyer, you know, when you get those flyers and you get the single sheet that comes in the folded packet of flyers, this is what these were. These were those single sheets. Isn't that cute? Gosh, I love all the colors in these things. Well, before we end this segment, I wanted to show you what I did with the placemat that we just created. I mixed some white latex paint with some gesso, painted everything up in the background, and then I dry brushed some red latex paint and some blue latex paint, and then just put some little stars on it. And it makes a pretty cute placemat for this weekend. Also, these can be used for birthday parties, for little kids' birthday parties. You can make them up and you could have them paint them or put stickers on them. It can be used for all holidays. Well, crafters, I hope that you enjoyed this segment of KISS, Keep It Simple Sylvia, where we did this cute little weaving and turned it into a really nice placemat, painted it all up, got it all ready for the 4th of July holiday. I hope everybody has a safe and happy 4th of July and 4th of July weekend. And please join me again next Friday for another segment of KISS, Keep It Simple Sylvia. Bye for now.